All right, folks, welcome to my first screencast. You'll all be very patient with me, I'm sure. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. And again, with the screencast, the advantage here is if you aren't sure about what's going on or aren't sure about a concept, or in this case vocabulary, you can go back and rewatch and so on. Whereas if you have a more solid understanding, you could even kind of skip ahead and kind of self-regulate that way. So anyway, without further ado, this is our next unit here. We're talking about North and South. How America really is splitting into two different Americas in the early 1800s, and that those kind of differences that we saw even back to Jamestown and Plymouth are getting worse and worse. We're doing the vocab here up front because vocab really is comprehension. So if you don't understand these words we're talking about, then you're not going to understand the concepts and the facts and the different things we need to understand and do well in the course. So let's take a look. Let's get going. You have your sheets there. You should. So let's follow along. First one is geography, and again, this should be a pretty simple term, but here just to remind ourselves, when we talk about the geography of the North and the South, we're talking about the natural features, okay, not necessarily the human features. Geography can mean human features, but here when we talk about geography, I want to know about the physical characteristics of a place without humans and how that really shapes how the humans come to respond to their land and so on. So here in geography, we want the natural features. Climate. Is weather is temporary. Climate is rather permanent, or usually permanent. And what we need here when we talk about the North and the South is what the weather patterns are over time. Right? Does one place have hot and humid summers and cold, snowy winters? Is one place kind of temperate or kind of moderate year-round? And how does that affect the people who live there and the things that they do for a living and so on? So climate, the weather over a period of time or over time. Next one, guys, agriculture. Again, this is one that we should know, but I'm continually shocked by how many 14-year-olds, how many 8th graders can't tell me what agriculture is. Again, it's just farming, all right, cultivating land, raising crops, and so on. The North and the South back then both had agriculture, but they're very different. So we'll make sure we highlight that. All right, here's a big one, guys. When we talk about the changes North and South, textiles. In the Industrial Revolution and when people started to build things in factories and so on, the textile industry really led the way. So a textile can be a woven fabric, or it's the textile industry, the business of making that woven fabric. And again, before the Industrial Revolution, 1700s and before that, that was all spun. Wool was spun into thread, which was then kind of almost by hand woven into cloth. And during this time period, people in the North and other places in the world are figuring out how to kind of mechanize or make this a machine-based process, and they can make massive amounts of cloth in a short amount of time. All right, labor, guys. Labor is another classic example of an English word that can mean a lot of different things. All right, but here we want to talk about labor as in like, well, it can be the physical or mental effort that people are putting forth, but here we'll mostly focus on labor as the labor force, as a collection of workers. So labor is a collection of workers. Industry. All right, this is going to be a noun that really talks about the process of making products using machinery. So factories. So or an industry can be like a group of businesses. So the textile industry, right? Or today we have like the computer industry or the television industry. So it can either be just in general making things in factories with machines, or it can be an individual collection of businesses that do the kind of same thing, provide the same service. Next one, guys, demographics. Right? If you remember from last year, we talked about how democracy means people power. So that demos, remember, is a Greek word that means people. And graphic, of course, means like a picture. So this is a picture of people. So here the formal definition is the qualities of a specific group of people. And what I gave you over here on the right is the demographic breakdown of the United States population by state. All right, so this is the picture of the people and where they live in the United States. We have 50 states, but they're not equally populated, as you can definitely see here. It's a great chart. In fact, half of the U.S. population lives in just 9 of those 50 states. All right, and Michigan is just barely in that kind of big half, the big 9 states, I guess we could call it. So demographics is a picture of the people in a place. And that ends part 1.